Hello, everyone. My name is Corey Daharsh. I'm with Advanta IRA, and I'm here today with an educational webinar on the Checkbook Control IRA. Just a little bit of information about me. I've been with Advanta IRA since 2016. I've served a few different roles with the company, starting out as a client account manager, servicing clients' investment transactions, questions, concerns about IRS rules and regulations, and pretty much being that direct point of contact for our existing clients during that time with the company. So I've handled thousands of investment transactions, structures, strategies, questions that clients have. I've got a pretty wide and diverse wealth of knowledge about the self-directed investing space. And I also have what's called a CISP designation, Certified IRA Services Professional. I've had that since 2018, and it does require continuing education courses to keep that up to good standards. If you have any questions for me that you'd like to take off of today's webinar, please feel free to take down my phone number or my email address here and reach out to me one-to-one. I'll be more than happy to help anybody with any questions, whether it's checkbook control related or not. Feel free to reach out at your convenience. Also, a little bit of housekeeping. Today's webinar is recorded, so if you would like to watch it back, you'll receive an email within about 24 hours with a copy of the recording, which will also be posted on our YouTube channel. So within about 24 hours, you can go to YouTube, search Advanta IRA, and find the recording of today's webinar there to watch back at your own pace. And finally, a copy of today's slide deck is in the handouts section of your GoToWebinar panel. So if you look at the panel there and see the tab labeled handouts, I've uploaded a PDF copy of today's slide deck there. If you'd like to download that for your own purposes, please feel free to do so. I will be keeping the audience muted for the duration of my presentation today, but I do want to encourage your active participation. I have the questions box up on a screen. So if you have questions as I'm presenting, as long as it relates to what I'm talking about in the moment, I'll go ahead and address them right then and there. And then I do have a slide at the end for any miscellaneous questions that you may have. I'll be addressing those so that I can keep on track with my presentation at the end of today's call. And again, if there's any questions you have that don't relate to this topic specifically, or you would like to or prefer to ask me offline in a one-to-one capacity, I'm always happy to exchange emails or even schedule a call with you to talk through any self-directed questions you may have. So a brief disclaimer before I get into the brunt of today's presentation. I am here to provide educational content. Myself and Advanta IRA are not able to convey any tax advice, legal advice, or financial advice. So keep in mind, this is strictly educational. I'm here to teach you about the checkbook control strategy and self-directed retirement account investing in general. Please feel free to consult with your own CPAs, attorneys, tax preparers, etc. at your discretion. We do have a list on our website. If you have any questions for those types of professionals, we don't endorse or promote them, but they have worked with us in the past or are existing clients of ours that are well knowledgeable in their areas of expertise relative to self-directed investing. So if you find that on our website, that's great. Or if you would like me to provide that information to you or a link to that page of our website, just email me or shoot me a phone call. So Advanta IRA, as a self-directed administrator, has been in business for over 21 years. We've got about 15,000 active clients right now and just over $3.5 billion in assets under administration. All of our clients' funds that are not actively invested are secured by FDIC insured institutions while they're not actively invested. Obviously, once you decide to make an investment, or in the course of today's presentation, move that money into a Checkbook LLC, then it's really at your own discretion. Obviously, the bank account you use for your LLC is likely an FDIC insured institution as well. But once you make the investment, you're at the risk factor of whatever investment you're choosing to make. And finally, from a customer service standpoint, our model is, as I mentioned earlier, each client gets paired with a dedicated client account manager. So you have a one-to-one point of contact when you have an account with us to answer all of your questions, help you through processing an investment transaction. It's a lot different than some of the other companies in the industry where you pretty much have a call center and you have to explain who you are and what you're trying to do each time you have some action you'd like to take with your self-directed funds. So my agenda for today is that I'm going to cover an overview of the self-directed rules and various asset classes you could choose to invest into with a self-direct account. Then I'm going to break down what a checkbook IRA is and how it works, how to set it up and follow the IRS's rules through setup and through maintaining and utilizing your checkbook control, some legal considerations that you should be aware of, and then a few case studies as to how to accomplish setting up checkbook control. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, I'll wrap up with any miscellaneous questions you may have and closing out with some information about our company, how to get started with an account, where else you can find educational content, and again, how to contact me if you would like to reach out one-to-one. So if you haven't heard about self-directed retirement accounts, that's actually very common. Only about 4% of US-based retirement accounts are actively being self-directed, and that's mostly because people don't know that this exists. You're usually with a fiduciary or a financial advisor that holds your IRA or 401k plans, whatever retirement plans you have, and they usually don't want you to know that this exists. They may even say that they have a self-directed product, but when you look into that further or go to set it up, it's really just a list of stocks, bonds, index funds that you're allowed to choose from. A truly self-directed retirement account is one with a non-fiduciary administrator like us that really lets you invest into any asset class you would like without having to do our own underwriting or due diligence on the deals you're choosing from. So it's a really unique account, again, that lets you take the power and control into your own hands and invest into assets you're interested in or you have expertise in, not specifically something an advisor or fiduciary is pushing your money into on your behalf, charging you interest or points or however those scales work out. We have flat rate fees. We facilitate any investment a client would want to make within the IRS rules and regulations, which is what we're experts in, structuring your deals the right way so that you're allowed to hold them in your retirement account and making sure you're aware of the rules and regulations for how you can and should be investing. So a self-directed account, as I mentioned, is one where you can hold any asset class pretty much under the sun that you would want to. This expands your limitations to asset classes that you cannot hold in a fiduciary account, like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and lets you invest into things that I just said you have your own expertise in or your own interests that you're building knowledge and expertise in. So this extends to real estate asset classes like rental properties or fix and flips or even real estate syndications, limited partnership style investments. You can invest into paper, so notes, whether it be a secured note, being a mortgage lender with your retirement funds, or an unsecured note, just issuing a promissory note to a non-disqualified relative, friend, family member, whoever that may be. Precious metals, cryptocurrency, and many, many more assets. I'll break down the actual rules in a few slides, but I just want to paint the picture that it's a broad and vast opportunity for you to invest your money outside of the limitations you may have thought existed in stocks, bonds, mutual funds. We do offer a lot of different plan types. So part of my job as an onboarding specialist is to speak with each person, make sure I understand what types of plans they currently have, what types of plans they qualify for, and set you up with the most appropriate plan type. We're mostly familiar in the world of retirement accounts with traditional and Roth IRAs, and even inherited IRAs if someone passed away and left you as a beneficiary to their traditional or Roth IRA. But we also offer health savings accounts for those of you with high deductible health policies, and education savings accounts for those of you that have a young one in your life. You'd like to set up one of these accounts. You can make a $2,000 per year contribution into it. You can take funds out of it with a complete tax-free capacity for qualified educational expenses. And once that individual is no longer needing the account, it can also be passed along to next of kin relatives. And then for those of you that are small business owners or self-employed, we do offer solo 401k accounts and SEP and simple IRA accounts. The benefit to those, they have higher annual contribution limits, and they also allow you to hold a mix of traditional and or Roth funds in them, that being tax deferred money that you pay taxes later when you draw it out of your retirement account and start using it for your personal expenses, or Roth, meaning post-tax. You put the tax liability when you put the money in the account, and then it grows completely tax-free. You never have to pay taxes on that money in the future when you draw it out of your retirement account. So I do want to hit on a few of the key reasons people do switch over to self-directed accounts. First off, it's a new source of capital. As I mentioned multiple times here, you may already be doing a certain investment strategy that you did not know that you could do with your retirement funds. So when people find out it's a new source of capital for strategies that they're already interested in or participating in. A lot of people are getting fatigued with the stock market, whether you move all of your funds into a self-directed account or just break off a chunk and diversify. People are just using it to kind of hedge what the industry is doing on the publicly traded sector with some alternative assets to, again, diversify your portfolio. And finally, the tax benefit of making investments with a retirement account. You're growing either tax deferred or completely tax-free income with passive investments. And specifically, like with real estate and some of the unique asset classes, there's no such thing as capital gains tax when you sell a property owned through your retirement account. So there are some benefits there. The flip side is you're making an investment with your retirement account, so you're not able to utilize offset write-offs and depreciation, things like that, because you personally are not making the investment, so it has no bearing on your personal tax filing annually. It does have a separate set of tax benefits when you're investing through retirement funds. So as I alluded to earlier, I'm going to break down the rules and regulations for self-directed investing. It's actually easier to tell you what you cannot invest into than to tell you all of the different things you are able to invest into. So basically, as long as it's not a life insurance policy or a hard to value collectible like antiques, fine wine, artwork. So that includes, again, anything that is not a subjectively valued asset. And then there are some coins you're allowed to invest into. It's more so on the value of the metal, so a precious metal investment, as opposed to investing in a specific coin for its actual value. Those are the only asset classes you can't invest into. Anything else you may be thinking of, there's likely a way to hold it. You just need to speak with your client account manager or speak with myself on the onboarding side to strategize and structure the investment that you're looking to make. The only other way the IRS restricts these accounts is by labeling certain individuals close to you as disqualified persons. So you're not able to transact with disqualified persons, meaning be on the other side of a transaction from them. These disqualified persons are basically your parents, your grandparents, your children, your grandchildren, your spouse, and any businesses that those individuals control day-to-day operations of or own 50% or more of the business. Outside of that, aunts, uncles, cousins, colleagues in your space of business, other distant family members are not considered disqualified. So you can transact with those relatives. Disqualified persons are your lineal ascendants and descendants, your spouse, yourself, and the businesses that any of those individuals own or control day-to-day operations of. I also have here on this slide UBIT tax, UBIT and UDFI, which are terms sometimes used interchangeably. Those are little known taxes that apply in some investment scenarios. I'm not going to go into that in today's presentation, but I do want to make sure you're aware if you're utilizing your retirement funds to purchase an investment that is going to require leverage, so taking out a loan to purchase property, that would involve UDFI tax, unrelated debt financed income tax, and UBIT, unrelated business income tax, is when you're making an investment that's not generating solely passive income, which is the intent of these retirement accounts in the eyes of the IRS. Maybe you invest into a functioning business and that business is generating active income. That's a case scenario where UBIT may apply. So keep in mind, depending on your investment strategy, there are some little known taxes that may apply. We've got separate content on our website and separate educational webinars that break that down much more thoroughly, and I'm always happy to answer questions separately on those factors. So a quick illustration here of more listings of the different types of asset classes you can invest into. I just did a separate educational webinar with a colleague of mine on the most unique investments we've ever seen. So some things that come to mind is investing into farm animals, movie projects, raw land for timber or just general appreciation, equipment leasing, oil and gas, future and Forex. Like I said, anything under the sun you can really invest into, as long as there's the proper structure in place and that it is ultimately intentionally a passive income generating asset. Disqualified persons, here's the actual illustration. Everything I said 2 slides ago is pretty much reiterated here. Your family members on your lineal tree, ascendants, descendants, are disqualified from transacting with your retirement account. That does not mean you cannot partner with them, So you and a disqualified person are able to partner your IRAs into an LLC for that matter, or partner into a direct property purchase. Different things that you can do within the rules. Feel like I've covered all of them. If anyone has any questions on rules and regulations, please feel free to pop those into the questions box. If they come up in the next few moments, I'll go ahead and cover them. Otherwise, I will cover them at the end of the presentation. So jumping into checkbook control, what is checkbook control? It's basically your ability to have direct access to your retirement funds without having to go through your custodian or administrator for every transaction you'd like to execute. So a lot of clients utilize the custodial or administrative account, meaning they have their client account manager, they have an investment they'd like to process, they provide the paperwork to their account manager or put their account manager in touch with the investment provider or real estate agent, closing attorney for the investment they're trying to make. And that client account manager facilitates the paperwork, your approval, executing the actual transaction. The other way to go about self-directing is utilizing checkbook control, where you essentially establish an LLC for the sole purpose of your retirement account making investments, and that LLC receives the money from Advanta IRA into a checking or savings account, and you have checkbook access. So you could have a debit card, you could have a physical checkbook. You're not able to have a line of credit or a credit card, but you do have direct access to the money. So you then make all of your investments in the name of the LLC that you establish at your own discretion, at your own timeline. Again, making sure you're well-versed in those IRS rules or consulting with your client account manager before you ideally make a possibly prohibited investment. You have the reign, the power, and the physical dollars at your fingertips with checkbook control. So a few rules regarding the checkbook control setup. The LLC must be manager managed. The two different ways an LLC are typically set up are either member managed or manager managed. And keep in mind your retirement account is going to be the member, and that's not a human being. That's not a physical entity capable of making decisions. So manager managed is how the operating agreements management section has to be listed. Ideally, you're appointing yourself and possibly your spouse or any other business partners as managers to this LLC. That's completely your discretion. You can include more than one IRA, but the ownership percentages are based on the initial contribution. So if you're going into an LLC with multiple members, the exact dollar amount that's brought to the table from each party is going to break up the 100% ownership. From that point in time, those owners cannot exchange any percentages with each other. So be sure if you're splitting a percentage that you know that that's a stable percentage for both partners. If any additional contributions into that LLC need to be made, then that needs to be made at the same percentages. So let's say we fund an LLC with two partners, 50-50, $100,000. 2 years down the line, that LLC needs another $10,000 funded into it. That means each of those two partners has to come up with $5,000. If you don't have $5,000 in your retirement account, or you don't have the ability to contribute $5,000 or transfer or roll over $5,000 from existing accounts, your hands are tied. Your partner can't overfund the LLC on your behalf. That goes into prohibited dealings. So make sure when you set up that ownership percentage, it's at a stable number that you're able to maintain for the life of this LLC. There are many provisions related to prohibited transactions. Essentially, all the rules I went over on the last few slides apply through the LLC. There's no tax return required if it's a single member entity. If you set up one of these LLCs with multiple members, then you do need to at least file a tax return. You're obviously with the LLCs in the US going to need to do your state filing anyway. And there is case law to support that you can be the manager of your IRAs-owned LLC. Some of you may have been thinking when I went over the disqualified persons rules, okay, if I'm not allowed to transact with my own retirement account, how am I allowed to be the manager of this entity and utilize it for investment purposes? So that first went into case law with the Swanson versus Commissioner case. He was deemed to have a prohibited transaction by serving as the manager of his IRAs LLC. He fought that in the courts, and it was deemed that as long as he's not compensating himself and he's strictly using this LLC within the IRS's rules for retirement investing to generate passive income, he is allowed to serve as the manager. And then the TC memo, tax court memo of TL Ellis, further established, again, that you cannot pay yourself. So you're not allowed to draw a salary. If you need to travel somewhere, let's say you want to purchase a property outside of your local region and you need to travel to go inspect the property or whatever the investment may be, you're not allowed to pay for your travel expenses and things like that out of your LLC's funds. So if you have any other questions about the laws, the rules, the regulations, you could reach out to me directly, or if you're an existing client of ours, your client account manager will be able to answer those as well. So there are a few different ways to achieve checkbook control. Most individuals utilize the LLC route. So that's establishing a limited liability company and appointing yourself as the manager, your retirement account as the member. And in that case, the title of the assets are in the name of the LLC, and the IRA is the member of the LLC. The other commonly less utilized way to achieve checkbook control is by setting up a trust. So when you set up a trust, you yourself cannot be the trustee of your retirement account's trust. So you do have to have a non-disqualified relative appointed as the trustee. There are trustee services out there. You could use a friend, non-disqualified family member. It's your discretion. The titling of the assets when you utilize a trust is in the name of the trust, very similar to the LLC. And the IRA is the grantor or the beneficiary of the trust, not specifically a member. Again, most clients utilize the LLC route, but the trust route is also a viable option. It's your own discretion to look into the nuances there, the differences, and see what would be better for you and your needs. So setting up the Checkbook LLC is a very simple process. You essentially just have to file the LLC in the state of your choice, obtain a tax ID number for the LLC, and this can all pretty much be done online. The tax ID number typically takes a day, if not 2 days, to get returned to you. And the state registration varies by state and varies by time of year as well. There are certain times where there's a ton of LLCs being filed, so the state may be backed up. There's other times of the year where you may get your LLC registered in your state within a day or possibly several hours. Once you have your articles of organization in the state of your choice, does not have to be your state of residence. For various reasons, you could choose to go in whatever state you'd like to. Wyoming, Delaware are certainly common. That's, again, part of your discretion to look at the rules and regulations, decide what state you want to incorporate the LLC in. Once you have that done and you have your tax ID number, you can essentially walk into any financial institution of your choice and say, okay, here's my articles of organization, here's my tax ID number. You'll also need to typically provide them your operating agreement showing that you're capable as the member, as the manager to sign and hold that bank account. You can then establish a bank account. Again, it has to only be a checking and or a savings account. You cannot open up a line of credit in the name of your LLC. Once you have that established, then you work with your client account manager to fund that LLC's bank account. In regards to filing for the LLC, most states require that you have LC or LLC in the title of the entity. We do request that you do not include Advanta or IRA in the name of your LLC. So it could just be Corey Invests LLC, Corey Daharsh Retirement LLC. Retirement is tricky. You may or may not want to utilize that. We specifically ask you don't utilize Advanta or IRA, but outside of that, you could name it really anything under the sun you'd like to. You will have to appoint a registered agent and an address for that. A lot of clients just utilize themselves as the registered agent and their personal home address. It must be physically located in the state that you register. So sometimes you may need to use registered agent service or something of that nature. Maybe like I said, a non-disqualified relative or family member that lives in the state you're looking to register. And the management, I've gone over a few times, manager managed, and the managing members cannot sign documents. Again, that's why it has to be manager managed, because a member, being your retirement account in this case, is not an actual physical person even capable of signing any paperwork or documents. So drafting the operating agreement is very simple. We have trusted partners that we could refer you to that will set your LLC up for you from scratch. They typically charge a few $100s to do so. They give you a 1 to 2 page questionnaire, a couple basic information they collect from you, and then they set it up for you. but you could certainly just set it up yourself. If you have a template operating agreement from an LLC you've already established, you can certainly utilize that, just make some amendments and corrections relative to what the rules require for the IRA account. Or you could, as simple as go to Google or ChatGPT and request a prompt for a single member LLC operating agreement. On our end, as long as it covers the bases with the management and lists the either Schedule A or Exhibit A to break down all the initial contributions, who they're coming from, and what dollar amount they're going to be, we're perfectly fine. I've seen 1-page operating agreements, 3-page operating agreements. I've seen 30-page operating agreements. It could be as simple or complex as you would like it to be. Again, as long as it covers the few simple bullet points we outlined for you. There's no right or wrong operating agreement, and you can ultimately prepare that at your discretion or have a third party prepare it. It must be executed by you and sent to us for the investment transaction to take place. These are pretty much the provisions I've just outlined verbally for you: an effective date of agreement, names of all the members and the managers, how new members may be admitted or removed from the LLC, voting procedures on various issues. These are standard things that any agreement's going to provide for you. Like I said, if you do a template or go to a service like LegalZoom, they're going to cover all of those things here. So obtaining the tax ID number, some people think this is a tedious process or takes a while. I registered an LLC in 2024. It took me 20 minutes at my computer, and I had my tax ID number the next business day. That specifically is in the IRS.gov website. It's a very simple process. You're going to be filling out whether the paper format SS4 document here or the online form that goes through all of these same questions and items. Opening the bank account's very easy. One thing I will note, and I say this with experience as a bank teller employee, that's what I did in undergrad to go through college. When you walk into that bank, you simply want to tell whoever you speak to, hey, I'm the manager of an LLC. I've got all my paperwork here. I'd like to establish a bank account at your institution. If you mention, oh, I have an IRA and I need a bank account for it, or this or that, if you mention retirement account or IRA, they are typically not well versed in self-direction, and they're going to get confused and tie you up with the manager of the bank or their compliance department trying to sell you on their IRA product, which in itself is not going to offer checkbook control, and it's just going to become a hassle. So the more simple put that you bring to the bank, the easier it's going to be to get that account opened up. So just say, hey, here's my articles, here's my tax ID number, here's my operating agreement, I'm the manager, let's set up Corey Invest LLC here at your institution. So this is kind of a flow chart of everything I've described for you thus far. You have an existing retirement account, you transfer or roll over funds or make a new annual contribution into a self-directed retirement account. You establish an LLC. Once the LLC is established, we execute an investment transaction to send your money into that LLC, and then you could start investing into whatever asset class you may want to. One of the benefits of this is that you are really, from a fee perspective, only being charged for the LLC being on the administrator's books, not each individual asset. So it helps you with asset fee consolidation. It helps you with the speed and smoothness of executing investments. You could go out on a weekend and make a deal. You could do, holidays, things like that. You have direct access. You can cut the check or provide your debit card to fund any investment transactions in the name of your LLC at your own timeline and discretion. As you invest with this LLC, it's important to note that all of your funds must flow in and out of the LLC directly. You should never be commingling your personal funds. You can't front your LLC and reimburse yourself personally. That goes through the disqualified persons rules I went over much earlier. The money and your bookkeeping records should be very clean with respect to the cash flow in and cash flow out of any investments you make. You must report the value of your LLC to your administrator on an annual basis. We typically provide you our one-page fair market value document around November, and we're trying to get that in and back from you by December 31st. I've done very short form educational content on our YouTube page. When you're setting up an LLC and providing an annual valuation for it, Basically, we need to know the value of cash in that LLC account and the value of each investment you hold in that LLC account. So if you keep a spreadsheet or something similar, so you could easily just look at a bottom line number and say, oh, I funded this LLC with $100,000. There's $20,000 left in the LLC's bank account, and I've got $70,000 worth of investments that are valued up, down, wherever they may be. Whatever that root total is, that's what you fill out on the fair market value form, and that's as much documentation or reporting that you really have to do respective to the IRS's rules and regulations. Separate from that, your annual filing, you still obviously need to do, and that's more of a clerical issue than an actual investment transaction issue. So as I mentioned earlier, you can partner your funds through the IRA or with LLCs, whether you're using your LLC to partner with another individual or their LLC into a tertiary LLC, meaning my LLC, my business partner's LLC sets up a third LLC that each of our LLCs fund. That's a way to do it. You could set up multiple members in your LLC, but keep in mind you'll have a tax filing required if you have a multi-member LLC. And just really, it's whatever works best with your strategy. Maybe you have a master LLC for your retirement account, but for liability purposes, you further want to set up a sub LLC for each property you invest into or each asset you invest into. I'm not imploring you to do it one way or the other. I'm just letting you know that the options are pretty out there and available to you, depending on what your strategy may be and what your level of involvement or level of detail with this account chooses to be. So moving cash from the LLC back to yourself. So let's say you've been investing with this entity and you're reaching retirement age, you're stopping working, and you need to start using the retirement funds for personal purposes. You do have to move the money back from the LLC to your administrator so that you can execute a distribution request that is documented to the IRS. Now, this may or may not be taxable, depending if you're using tax-deferred funds or Roth funds, but it does have to flow through this manner to document properly that you're drawing the money out of the LLC. Never take cash directly out of your LLC for personal purposes. It always has to go back from the LLC to the administrator. So send the money in a check, an ACH, or a wire from the LLC's bank account back to Advanta, and then execute our distribution requests. You can do that with a paper form, or our simple online login that's available to clients 24/7 has a distribution request page on it. That's how you have to utilize the process if you want to take personal possession of any funds that you're using in your retirement account. Quick simple notes here. Checkbook Control in its nature is 100% owned by the retirement account. There are sub-strategies where you're utilizing multiple members. In that case, the ownership split based on the dollar amount brought to the table. The Checkbook Control does have to pay all of the investments and charges and things like that. The owner has to sign all the paperwork relative to the investments that you make. And if you do want to be having additional managers, that's perfectly fine. You can list anyone you'd like to as managers. At the minimum, you should be listing yourself as a manager. But for various purposes, you may want your spouse, you may want a business partner, you may have an attorney or someone like that that's involved in these affairs. So that's completely your discretion. So this slide here, it pretty much breaks down that the Checkbook Control allows you to do anything you want. A true IRA custodian offering self-direction is pretty much going to be a one-stop shop where you can get the account, you can get this set up and make investments with your account. Some companies try to do this and charge several $1,000s. We charge a few $100 a year. If you'd like to know our specific dollar amounts and fees, you could just shoot me an email. I'm always happy to send our fee agreement PDF right to you, discuss it over the phone so you're comfortable and understanding of all the things that we would ever charge for. But on average, we're at the lower end of the market in the self-directed space for our standard fees and rates. There's no secret formula that a custodian has to make an LLC allowed or disallowed. It's really just the IRS's rules. We do permit this strategy. There's some other companies out there that will not allow you to have checkbook control. So you may have a self-directed account right now, and your administrator, simply for their own discretions, will not let you have checkbook control. We do. We have. It's been a thing that we've allowed our clients to do for as long as I've been with the company. And again, if you're interested in some of the case law supporting checkbook control, that was Swanson versus Commissioner, which is 106 TC or tax court, 106 TC 76, dated 1996, and the TL tax court memo 2013. So my next few slides here are going to be just some case studies on how to establish checkbook control 3 different ways. So the first way is the primary way that I've been discussing here. You would like a single member LLC owned by your retirement account. So my case study, I've got Joe, who's got about $150 in a fiduciary IRA or a brokerage IRA. He decides he wants to invest in real estate and wants to purchase properties at the county auction. So he'll need quick access to the funds, possibly outside of Advanta IRA's business hours. I do want to preface this. We are very fast at executing transactions, but we are limited to our working hours. So 8:30 to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday Eastern time, 4 p.m. on Fridays. But if you're utilizing the auction system at your local municipality, maybe auctions take place on the weekends. Maybe you have to get money in by a certain time frame. And we typically take about 1 to 2 business days to process an investment once a client provides us all the paperwork. So in this case, Joe needs faster access to the money. So he completes an application, which only takes about 15 minutes, completes a transfer or rollover request to get the account funded. That typically takes about a week to a week and a half, depending on what type of account and what custodian those funds are currently with. But while we're waiting for the money to come in, the account's established within 24 hours, and there Joe can start setting up the LLC and getting the bank account open for the LLC. So as soon as his money comes in from the brokerage IRA, we can turn around and fund it into the LLC so he can invest at his discretion. As I mentioned earlier, Joe sets up the LLC in the state of his choice. He chooses a name for the LLC and starts preparing an operating agreement, and he gets a tax ID number for the LLC. Once those factors are provided, he'll open a bank account. And once the bank account's opened and the funds are in Advanta's possession, we can execute the investment transaction to fund Joe's IRA money into his LLC. The membership, I didn't go over this, but it's been on a few slides. The name of the member is a certain naming convention that we always use. It's going to be something to the effect of Advanta IRA for the benefit of Joe Smith and then his IRA account number. For your own reasons, you can choose to redact the name or the account number, but one of 2 has to be present. So it has to be Advanta IRA for the benefit of client name and or client account number at a minimum. The operating agreement gets executed. The LLC is able to operate once the funds are there. Joe signs all documentation, sends the funds out of the LLC bank account to facilitate any investments, and moves the money in and out directly of the LLC for income and expenses for the relative transactions that he makes. Case study 2 is utilizing a private trust, as I mentioned earlier. So in a very similar capacity, Joe has money in a retirement account. He wants to utilize a trust for checkbook control. He opens a self-direct account, conducts the custodian transfer or rollover from his existing plan. Account number is issued in 24 hours. So then Joe can start preparing the trust paperwork. So the IRA is listed as the grantor and beneficiary of the trust. The name of the IRA for technical purposes is Advanta IRA for the benefit of Joe or Joe's account number or both. Joe names a non-disqualified person as the trustee, and the trust is not of public record. So there's a little bit more anonymity that comes with the trust agreement as opposed to the LLC. That's one of the reasons people go to that option. Once the trust document is approved by Joe, Advanta IRA executes the investment transaction and sends the funds to the trust account. It's a very simple process. It works very similar to the LLC. The main difference here is when Joe decides he wants to make investment transactions, he needs to coordinate and facilitate that through the trustee of the trust. Any cash flow in and cash flow out are the trustee's responsibility on behalf of the trust to facilitate. And the third way of establishing checkbook control is what we call the DYO Solo 401k plan. We offer 3 different levels of our Solo 401k plan, DYO being the baseline, and then we have a standard record keeping and an enhanced record keeping plan. The standard record keeping plan, we have a client account manager facilitate your investment transactions. We hold the money for your retirement account, but we do not differentiate your traditional and Roth funds if you have both in the account. So that's up to you to keep bookkeeping records of what investments you make with your Roth dollars, what investments you make with your traditional dollars. And there is some basic tax filing required with a solo 401k as well that we do not cover. With our enhanced record keeping plan, we do differentiate your traditional and Roth dollars for you. Your client account manager facilitates your investments, and we do some of the basic tax reporting required by the IRS. But again, if you want checkbook control, the easiest way to do that is our DYO solo 401k plan, which in essence is checkbook control without even having to establish an LLC. So you would complete a DYO solo 401k application. You would name yourself the trustee of the 401k plan. You would need to get a tax ID number for the 401k plan, which is equivalent to getting the tax ID number for your LLC. This is a separate tax ID than your IRA account itself. This is a tax ID for the plan, the 401k, the employer-sponsored retirement plan that you're opening here. You then open a bank account in the name of that plan, very similarly to what you would do if you had the LLC route. We send the funds, actually we don't. You have the funds directly sent from your existing plans to your 401k bank account. You can use our transfer and or rollover paperwork as your template documents, but it's up to you when you go the DYO route to facilitate moving the funds into the 401k bank account from wherever they're currently housed. And then you go ahead and execute all of your investments in the name of your 401k directly, not in the name of a LLC or any other third entity like a trust or anything. It's in the name of the 401k plan itself. You can name the 401k whatever you want. It could be Joe Business 401k plan. It could be whatever you want it to be with the name of your business, your personal name, completely your discretion. And then again, reiterating, the cash flow in and out of the 401k must be direct and not commingled with your personal finances or funds at all. So there are pros and cons of using checkbook control. The pros are that it's easier to keep arm's length away from your retirement account. There's a clear record of all activity with your IRA. You have quick access to the funds. You can hold more assets with lower fees. There's possible asset protection and anonymity if you utilize that trust route. It's easier to make investments with partners, and you can hold any of the asset classes you would want to. You can even open a brokerage account in the name of your LLC or 401k plan with one of those brokerage platforms, so you can invest into stocks, bonds, mutual funds, those assets that we are not able to hold directly because we're an alternative asset administrator. The cons or things that you cannot do if you do not utilize checkbook control is that you cannot write checks with for immediate purchases. If you don't have checkbook control, you're responsible for the record keeping when you have checkbook control. There's a lack of oversight when you have checkbook control. So again, if you don't consult with your client account manager and or you're not well versed in the IRS's rules and regulations, you do run the potential of conducting a prohibited transaction or doing something disqualified with your account. If you don't utilize checkbook control, there's a potential for more administrative fees if you're holding multiple assets. It's again easier to engage in prohibited transactions. And additional capital calls could be problematic if there are additional partners. Again, the ownership percentage is locked from when you set up the LLC. So if you need to put more money in, that has to be proportional for each investor owning percentage interest in this LLC entity. So which is better for you? I'm not here to tell you one way or the other. I'm just here to give you root information. You may have heard everything I said today and decide, oh, checkbook's a great thing for me. I'm pretty entrepreneurial driven. I want this direct access and control of my funds so I can move quickly. That's great. Checkbook control could be a good fit for you. If that seems more of an headache or an overhead kind of role and responsibility for you, then we offer the administrative option where you just work with the client account manager to facilitate all your transactions and they help you with those types of things. It is possible to switch strategies. So if you set up an account and you don't go checkbook control and you have a few assets held custodially, you could set up an LLC in the future and do an in-kind contribution of those assets into your LLC. Advanta is not able to provide counsel or advice on investment strategies. Again, I'm here just with basic information so that you can come to your own discretion and decide if it's a good fit for you, which option is a good fit, whether it's the LLC, the trust, or if you're a small business owner, self-employed, the solo K, DYO route. That pretty much wraps it up. I do see a few questions coming in. This is a quick reminder. Go ahead and jot your questions into the box. I'll answer those in just a moment. Key takeaway points I want everyone to have learned from this presentation. Checkbook control is a great strategy for investors seeking flexibility and freedom. There are specific considerations for setting up the LLC, trust, or solo 401k, and any personal use of funds must flow from the checkbook account to the administrator and then as a distribution out of the administrative account for proper record keeping to the IRS. We have a lot of educational content. We put out 2 of these educational webinars a week. We have a podcast called the Alternative Investing Advantage Podcast. Anywhere you find your podcast, you can look for it there. And we have a blog on our website as well with industry news and information specific for checkbook control. A little anecdote I like to provide. A few years ago, there was some law and legislation that was going to take away the checkbook control strategy from US retirement investors. We heard about it. We put a blog post out. We started a change.org petition, and we got enough signatures to actually get that aspect of that legislation removed before it was ultimately passed into law. So we did help reserve and protect the checkbook control strategy for your investment purposes. I'm going to go ahead and go through questions now. I see a few more popping up. I'll leave my contact information on the slide for you guys as I start to address these questions. Keep them coming. As long as I see questions coming in, I'll keep the session live. I've got about 10 minutes still on how long we slate these webinars out for. So as long as you guys are asking me questions, I'm here for the next 10 minutes to answer them. All right. First off, will there be a recording so I can share with my wife? Yes, I addressed that at the top of the call. Because you have registered and you're here on the live presentation, a recording will be emailed to you within roughly 24 hours, and or you can go to Advanta IRA on YouTube. The recording should also be posted there within about 24 hours to watch it back at your own convenience. If someone falls, sues the owner, can they go after all the assets in the LLC/IRA? They can go after other assets in the LLC, not specifically in the IRA. So that goes back to something I said in the middle of the presentation. For various purposes, you may want to set up a sub LLC under your main IRA LLC umbrella for each property you invest into, or different things like that. That's more of your asset protection and liability strategy, but at least that's a basic answer for you to decide how you're going to structure and strategize further from there. Where can I get a copy of the deck? It is uploaded in the handouts tab on your GoToWebinar panel. So you can pull a PDF copy of today's slide deck from there, or you could email me directly and I could send you a PDF copy of the deck. If I have a Checkbook LLC and invest in a rental property, if a renter slips and falls, okay, that question I already answered. If I don't do Checkbook LLC, will you send investment funds via EFT? Yes, we'll administer the investment and we can send funds electronically via ACH or wire out to your investors. We can receive funds back from the investments that you make electronically via ACH or wire. That's perfectly fine. We also offer check cutting services as well. That covers everything that is in the questions box right now. I'll give it another minute or two if anyone's still typing out questions. Otherwise, I'll go ahead and conclude the webinar for today. I hope this has been helpful for everybody. If you're interested in checkbook control, please feel free to reach out to me directly. Again, my direct phone number and email address are here on the screen. That is not a textable phone number per FCC. We are not allowed to text because we are in the finance industry, but you can give me a call at that number directly or shoot me an email. I also have a Calendly link if you would like to reach out to me directly. That QR code on the screen pulls up a few other of my recent educational webinars, so you can see some other topics that I've covered recently. If you have any other self-directed investment interests outside of the checkbook control strategy. All right, I feel like I've stalled for about a minute or two there. I'm not seeing any other questions come in, so thank you all very much for your time. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day and enjoy your upcoming weekend. Thank you very much.